The lore of this game is so intriguing and so well written that it's easy to not get the entire picture on your first playthrough. It is so much happening at once in such a short video game that it can leave you a little confused. But that's why I'm here. This video is the complete lore you need to fully understand what really happened to Ned Goodwin and his son Brian. Before we can discuss the tragedy that harmed Brian, we first have to understand who his father was. Ned. It was stated by Delilah that before Ned worked for the Forest Service, he was a member of the United States Army, where he received his training in electrical communications and was eventually discharged due to his mother's death. Prior to joining the Firewatch, he had a son named Brian, whom he seemed to have a strained relationship with. 3 years prior to Henry's joining the Firewatch, Ned took a job with the Forest Service and was stationed at the Two Forks Tower, bringing his son Brian along despite it being against regulations. He would attempt to teach Brian about rappelling and mountaineering despite his son having zero interest in the activity. It was during one of these lessons that Brian would fall to his death in Cave 452 after one of his climbing anchors came loose. Rather than returning home and endure the questions and ordeal of a funeral, Ned fled into the wilderness, leaving no trace of where he'd gone. At some point afterward, Ned would set up a base camp of sorts in the old bunker, salvaging or stealing whatever he needed to get by. At some unknown point, Ned stole the key to the access gate inside the Cave 452, locking it off from the public to prevent his son's body, Brian, from being discovered. At the very end of day 1, Ned is first seen as a shadowed figure shining a light down at Henry when he returns from the lake after exiting the cave in Thunder Canyon. While Henry was returning, Ned broke into the Two Forks Tower, stealing several items and throwing Henry's typewriter out the window. Ned then would cause more trouble by cutting the communication line north of the canyon and planting several beer cans and other evidence implicating the 2 teenage girls of the crime, leading Henry to their camp with a trail of litter. Ned destroys the 2 teenage girls' campsite, the very same girls you meet skinny dipping in the lake down at Thunder Canyon, making Henry believe the girls are responsible for the break-in in Henry's lookout tower. During all this, Ned would be using equipment stolen from the Wapiti Meadow Research Station to monitor Henry and Delilah's radio conversations, taking numerous notes and making numerous logs which he would later plant at the station. While at the lakeside tracking a problem bear, Henry recovers a notepad left behind by Ned detailing the conversation he and Delilah had the night before, only for Ned to knock Henry unconscious after luring him with the sound of an old radio and stealing both items back. Ned's monitoring eventually leads Delilah and Henry to the conclusion that the Wapiti Station scientists are the one who's spying on them. After Henry breaks in and sees the records and steals the wave receiver, Ned burns the camp in order to destroy evidence, inadvertently causing it to merge with the pre-existing fire. Ned eventually plants a backpack with a key to Cave 452's gate, rigged with an alarm and transmitter to lead Henry straight to it. While Henry is looking for Ned's signal, Ned breaks into the Two Forks Tower, leaving behind a tape player containing a recording of Delilah and Henry, implicating them in the fire at Wapiti Station. Ned then contacts another lookout using Henry's name, stating that Delilah knew the cause of the fire at Wapiti Station, prompting Delilah and Henry to investigate the cave. Ned then slams the gate and locks it, attempting to trap Henry inside, leading him to discover Brian's remains inside the cave. The next day, Ned rigs a tape to a transmitter collar attached to a rope for Henry to discover. The tape contains a statement by Ned explaining his actions over the course of the summer, taking responsibility for everything that had occurred, stating that due to Henry's discovery and the massive fire approaching, he is leaving to find a new place deeper inside the park, stating that Brian's death was an accident and that he is sorry for all the troubles that he caused Henry. What happens to Ned after this is unknown, but he is implied to be living somewhere deep within Yellowstone Park. As mentioned earlier, Brian Goodwin was the son of Ned. Against Forest Service regulation, he had lived with his father at Two Forks Lookout Station 3 years before Henry's arrival. Delilah knew of this but was fond of Brian and chose not to contact the Forest Service. He had his own hiding spot just north of Cave 452, where many of his personal possessions can be found. He appears to have an interest in science, as he left behind a notebook detailing a ham radio, which directs radio waves at meteors to send long-distance radio frequencies thousands of miles away. Often, Ned would force Brian to engage in hiking activities against his will. Unfortunately, this would inevitably be his downfall. Sometime in 1987, Ned took his son into Cave 452 to climb a large rock wall. However, an inexperienced Brian didn't hammer his piton into the rock properly, and when he scaled the rock wall, the rope snapped and he fell down to his untimely death. Ned, shocked by this, feared that if he reported the accident, he would be accused of murdering his only son. Because of this, he locked up the cave and hid the key, and subsequently fled in the forest to set up a makeshift bunker. He would hide there for 3 years until Henry arrived. In 1989, Henry arrived and eventually discovered Cave 452. After breaking into it, he glances down and sees what looks like a red shoe down at the bottom. Soon after, he discovers, to his horror, Brian's rotting corpse up close and reports it to Delilah, who promptly mourns his death. It is implied an investigation is carried out shortly after the events of the game, inquiring about Brian's death.